The stories you see here tonight are not necessarily written by the performers, but are the experiences that other students may have faced on the campus. Given the nature of these monologues, I'd like to provide a trigger warning for anxiety, depression, rape, suicide, and suicide attempts. The Me Too Monologues is a project created by students for students. As you watch the performance, I invite you all to consider how you can make your own contribution, be it listening or sharing, in the dialogue I hope to foster on mental health issues on campus. With that, I'm proud to present to you the 2017 Me Too Monologues dedicated to Wan Shik Shin class of 2019. Thank you.
What's wrong?
How do I explain an illness when you can't see the symptoms?
How do I say, I have a constant headache caused by nothing that doesn't go away no matter how much water I gulp down? I have a stomach that boils with acidity for no reason. A mind in constant war with my lungs, squeezing the air from my lips so that trying to speak is like being chained to the ocean floor. Eyes that dart from space to space like some awful demon might be lurking in the shadows. But every time I check, there is nothing there.
So I close them. I tell myself to breathe. I try to regain my composure just long enough for no one to notice. I plaster on the smile that everyone would like to see. I lie to myself that if I pretend to be okay, I will be.
What's wrong?
You know, I've never been the crying type. I was the kind of girl that could take an elbow to the nose and brush it off as a bump. I could scrape my knees on the pavement until they were raw and jump back up laughing. I could go to the hospital and tell the doctors the pain was at a 7, when in fact, my appendix was about to burst, and all I felt was a burning nausea.
So I tell them to suck it up, to be strong, to prove themselves more resilient than what other people thought.
How then did my weekly laundry routine begin including the scrubbing of mascara-stained pillowcases? When did I suddenly switch from shaking off the paint to struggling not to bang my head into my bedroom wall until I bled?
What's wrong?
You may only see the rhythmic tapping of my fingers, but in reality that is my SOS. The shaking of my leg that resembles a nervous tic actually serves the purpose of releasing just enough energy so I don't go off the edge. The sudden jerks of my head that I laugh off are the physical proof of me trying to shake those thoughts that appear again and again, that voice that says,
"You're worthless."
Who could ever love you?
Don't trust him.
Don't trust her.
Don't trust yourself.
I barely recognize the headstrong, unbreakable girl I used to be.
What's wrong?
It's funny. You may say it's all in my head, and ironically, you'd be right. But it isn't just in my head.
It is my head.
This time, the burning nausea can't just be brushed off. This is it.
This is the 10.
But how do I explain an illness when you can't see the symptoms?
What's wrong?
Nothing.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
What's wrong?
Nothing?
What's wrong?
Nothing. Sometimes I remember my grandfather. He was a scientist. When everything started to fall to pieces, he made sure to investigate what was going on. At first, he thought he was being used for army intelligence experiments. Maybe they were developing telepathic communication systems, and he'd ended up receiving the transmissions by mistake. When that seemed unlikely, he thought perhaps it was radio waves. The television, fridge, lamps, fans, all the plugs had to stay at least 8 inches from the sockets, just in case. But his head wouldn't clear. The problems would go away. So as one last test, he got into his old baby blue convertible and drove into the mountains. He left no sign of where he had gone, no note, just an empty garage. It was a week later when he I'm sick, he said. He was. I only knew my grandfather as a silent figure sitting in an armchair, yellowed by cigarette smoke, sedated by a cocktail of medications that silenced the voices in his head. He was taking more than a healthy dose. My grandmother kept giving him more and more because she thought it would make him better. She would call different doctors, stock up on a supply of spare pills. She kept some Valium for herself and for her dog because otherwise it would bark all night during a thunderstorm. My grandfather died when I was about 12, but I didn't know him well enough to feel sad. My mother told me he had been brilliant, charming, and charismatic, and I believed her when I saw old photos of him in his army uniform, or laughing as he held his two daughters, toddlers, by the hand. But I had never known that man, and my mother's sadness was alien to me. Her eyes showed years of exhaustion, bitterness, and grief that I didn't understand. I began to understand when my life started to crumble. I walked through life with an emptiness in my heart, struggling to sleep and eat, hating myself. Every couple of months, I would shut down completely, curled up in bed, catatonic. My mother was furious, sitting silently through conversations with doctors, therapists, and psychiatrists, refusing to let me take medication. I was sad and scared and shocked. Did she not understand? I tried to hide my problems from her as much as I could. But when I was alone in the dark, trying to sleep, I would sometimes hear a voice telling me to hurt myself. And sometimes I would. Sometimes I couldn't stop it. One day, I grew too afraid. Please, I said, I need help. My mother sat very still in her chair with the same sad, tired eyes. And that's when she told me about my grandfather. How it felt to watch him turn into a shadow, someone she didn't recognize. He killed himself in the end. Swallowed all of his pills. My mother had been afraid for years the same thing would happen to her. Felt relieved every year that passed without her brain turning against her. She hadn't even worried about her children until she realized that our symptoms and diagnoses matched. I felt destined for the life that he had lived. But now we've been learning together that isn't the only way to live. I meet with doctors and find medications that help me. I talk to therapists. As each day passes, I feel less and less afraid, and I think my mother does too. We're both learning to move forward. But sometimes, I still stop and remember.
I just don't want to talk about it anymore. I can't describe a panic attack. And anyways, I don't want to. I can't even say the words without a shadow of it all coming back. In the beginning, your stream of consciousness is fractured beyond anything that can be called thought. Instead, you get a kaleidoscope of bits and pieces and half-phrases. Thinking is not something you do, but it happens to you, and it's moving way too fast and out of your control. an incoherent mess, a jumble of strongly felt negative emotions, unexplained and unwanted. You begin to lose control of your brain, and after that, everything else. Everything. I was pacing, walking way too fast and erratically, hardly knowing where I was going. You don't choose much during a panic attack. There's no intentionality. Your vision's fuzzy anyways. You're certain about one thing, and that is the total helplessness of your situation and of everything. But then, everything comes from the mind in the first place, right? Your brain is telling itself that its own invented danger is beyond control. The mind is strong enough to tear itself apart, but not strong enough to put itself back together. I was so scared, actually, that my first panic attack triggered a second one, which triggered a third one. Chain panic attacks, they're called. Psychologists say they only last around 14 minutes, but I was going for an hour or so that first time. Going and going and going. My mother didn't actually want me going outside because she didn't want the neighbors to see any of it. But my father insisted that I be let out to get some fresh air. I was practically breaking the door down anyways, and I was sitting on the hill outside my house that I first started to come down. And then it settles, and you start to flatline. Everything's at such a high pitch, such an insane frequency of emotion, that when it's over, you don't feel anything at all. It is my mother's firm belief that panic attacks are a conscious choice and fall under a general heading, you need to get yourself under control. Well, I would if I could. So it's never mentioned to them, because it didn't happen. It was just an evening of unusually bad behavior. Nothing to talk about. I tried explaining it to my friend once, but to rather mixed results. It's hard. It's really hard. I don't want to be associated with trauma and tragedy. I don't want sympathy. I don't want any more kindness than the average person receives. I don't want any reaction whatsoever, so I can't bring it up near as often as I think about it. So why tell anyone? To most people, a panic attack is that moment of stress when you remember you have homework due that you haven't started. Or OCD is not liking patterns to be broken. And depression is your girlfriend breaking up with you. It's a pain to go through a panic attack. It's scary. And watching a roller coaster they've never been on doesn't tell you what it's like to feel a drop in your stomach. I don't think there's anything you can really do. That's basically what I've learned. Anxiety is a creeping, horrible thing, and I resent that I have no reason for it. And I resent that it's apparently stronger than I am. I just don't want to talk about it anymore.
So, do I just start from wherever, or? Okay. I was 10 the first time I tried to kill myself. It was silly, really. I held a pillow to my face, duct taped around it, and waited as my pulse started ringing in my head, waiting to pass out and then gradually suffocate. Didn't happen. I felt panic clawing its way up my throat as my chest started to constrict. I wriggled my way out of my poorly secured device, hair ripping from my scalp as I yanked the duct tape off the back of my head. I felt guilty and scared, but mostly embarrassed. What did I think I was doing? Why did I think that would work? What was I trying to do? I wanted to disappear. ear, I guess. Make everything go away. I was tired of the people at school laughing at me behind my back and moving to a different table when I sat down. Tired of my mother telling me that I was fat and that I needed to lose weight. And tired of feeling like I was only a worthwhile human being if my math scores were perfect. My attempts became more aggressive. At 11, I jumped out of my bedroom window. I sprained my ankle, bruised my knees, scraped my palms. I was frustrated that I didn't even break a bone. I just told my parents that I had fallen down the steps of our front porch. So, kids at school became more aggressive. They grabbed my notes from my desk and ripped them up, stole my gym clothes and threw them in the trash. They told me that I was ugly and that nobody would love me. I believed them. When I was 12, I bought a can of Raid at CVS, sprayed it into a cup, and tried to drink it. I ended up gagging and retching instead. Spent the rest of the night throwing up. How much time do we have left? Okay. 13, I lay in the bathtub with 3 cinder blocks laid over my body. 4 cinder blocks. 1 on my legs, 1 on my torso, 2 holding my head underwater. I had taken a cocktail of pills all week over-the-counter meds, hoping that they'd make me drowsy so I'd be less likely to struggle. I can't really remember if it worked. I remember my sister coming into the bathroom, her yelling at my parents to come upstairs, someone carrying me into an ambulance. Spent a few days in the hospital. I was supposed to start therapy, but I didn't. So, started a few prescriptions that I thought helped for a few months. And that scared me. I didn't believe that I deserved to be happy. Still, it wasn't until I was 15 that I tried again with another cocktail of pills. 2 bottles of Advil, 30 days worth of Trazodone, Celexa, Abilify, Buspar, Klonopin, and Gabapentin mixed in a cup of photography development chemicals. I tied a rope around the beam across the ceiling of my bedroom, and I put it around my neck. I wavered before jumping. Partially because I was dizzy and nauseous from everything I'd swallowed, but also partially because I was afraid. What if this worked? What if it didn't? I forced myself to go through with it. Because I had a paper due the next day that I hadn't started, and I couldn't bear the thought of not turning it in on time. I remember swirling colors. I remember this terrible pressure squeezing across my throat. I remember passing out. the knot wasn't good enough. My father found me unconscious on the floor of my room. I woke up in the hospital with a bruised neck and red marks where the rope had broken skin. Spent the next few months in inpatient treatment after that, hopping from psych wards to short-term therapy boot camp to a longer-term residency program, and now this. I didn't learn to be happy, but I learned how to not hate myself. That's been enough to keep me alive.
I take 2 pills every morning. I am not those pills, but they are a part of me. Rewind. Last fall, junior fall, I am not okay. I fall asleep 3, 4, 5 times a day in class, at work, eating lunch with people who would be my friends if I had the energy to talk to them. Eye contact feels exhausting. I don't focus. I throw away full plates of food, too nauseated and guilty to finish them. I count down the hours to bedtime. I fail my DiffyQ exam. I don't give a fuck about my DiffyQ exam. It's mid-October, and I'm standing in my ex-girlfriend's room, explaining how my senses of hearing and smell feel diminished, how I hate listening to people talk when she says, "You're depressed." Maybe, I say, because she's an RCA who's been trained on these things. No, you are, she says, because she's perceptive and worried and knows I'm in too much denial to get any sort of help on my own. So I go to CPS and meet with 2 doctors. I tell them I can't focus, can't eat, can't make eye contact, can't stay awake. I tell them I'm an engineer and my emotions are fucked, so can we please just do this logically? And they walk me through the options. I leave with an appointment for next week and a prescription. Pill number 1, Wellbutrin, bupropion, 300 milligrams, 1 pill every morning. 14 pills later, I can stay awake all day and understand an entire math lecture. 30 pills later, I feel okay enough to start talking to people again. 90 pills later, it's reading week, and I can focus enough to teach myself the entirety of DiffyQ. End up with a B- in the class. I talk with my therapist. I'm feeling better, but I'm still not eating. Junior spring, in the fall, I get A's in core lab. My ex-girlfriend becomes my girlfriend again. I have bad days, but I have good days too. My therapist helps me navigate my social life. The pills make me emotional. I cry all the time. It's nice to feel things again. But I'm still not eating. I feel nauseous every meal. I can't lose weight. All the curves around my hips are gone. The nurse at McCosh asked me if I'm intentionally not eating. I convinced several doctors that, no, I am not anorexic. Despite being a very underweight female, I take blood tests. I take an abdominal ultrasound. When it all comes back negative, I tell CPS, I need help. Pill number 2, Zoloft, sertraline, 25 milligrams, 1 pill every morning. anti-anxiety might help relax my stomach. I feel like shit for the first 2 weeks. I get dizzy randomly and tell my boss I can't drive. My head hurts, and the overhead lights are way too bright in my eyes. But slowly that all goes away. The doctor was right. I can eat again. I feel like myself. But then, one night I break down because I'm too ashamed. Ashamed that I needed those 2 pills every morning to function. Ashamed because the real me, who I am without those pills, isn't good enough. I need those pills to be good enough. My girlfriend listens from across the table. You're not those pills, she says. But who you are without them isn't the real you either. You don't have to be depressed just because that's how your brain works. You can help it. And then you can be you. Senior fall comes and goes, and she's right. I believe her more and more. I take those 2 pills every morning. With them, I can study, focus, laugh with my friends, look forward to the future, be madly in love, and eat 3 meals a day. I am not those pills. But for now, at least, those pills help me be who I am. And I'm okay.
Treatments are for those ear infections you get back in middle school that make the whole world seem out of balance for a couple days. Treatments aren't for when that feeling first wraps itself around you. You know the one I mean, right? That one that's like a suffocating blanket? The one that when you're 15, lying on your bed, trying to catch up on your chemistry homework, just forces your knees together and bows your head, and they just crumple inwards like a cheap folding chair. Under that blanket's heavy covers, you lie still for hours, your perfectly healthy fingers unable to write another word. What's worse, you get used to apologizing for being too lazy to do your homework again, for forgetting about that other test. And there are no treatments for that. I think I first told my parents during one of their fights about the chemistry grades. My father did not take it well. He said that I had not come to this country just so you could fail your classes. Sadness is never an excuse. And my mother wasn't much more help. She said that I didn't even have time to see a therapist. Come on, not with all the homework that you have. But it only takes a little bit of effort to keep your spirits up. You'll be fine. So I never brought the subject up again. And I never even noticed that blanket growing until it stretched from the ceiling down to the floor, a sort of dense and velvet stage curtain. And on the one side, on front of it, and under the spotlight, I became president of 2 clubs at my school. My name was a regular occurrence in the principal's newsletter. Admiring underclassmen would flock to me and ask me how I'd done it, how I'd maintained a perfect GPA 4 years straight, how I'd aced every single one of my standardized tests. But this acting, really was acting, that's all it was sustained on backstage debris. I mean, just look at my room. Just got 30 half-empty water bottles scattered around on the floor. These strands of spider silk just dangle from the ceiling and are left untouched by the duster 10 feet away. 10 feet away! And then there's the insomnia. It just takes me, even on the nights that my parents do reduce ceasefire. By the time I finished high school, breakfast and lunch had shrunk to a single packet of fruit snacks. And then I got here. Here, where I'm always being told to engage and explore and excel because apparently I have to serve humanity someday. I can't serve humanity. I can't get out of bed in the morning. I can't fall asleep at night. I can't do my work. I can't read my chapters. I can't do anything. I can't serve humanity because I can't even find a semblance of humanity left inside myself under this crushing blanket that has buried me, isolated me, taken everything from me, ruined me. And what's worse, I don't even feel sad about this anymore. I certainly don't feel happy either. I just forgot how. I'm still looking to find the courage to believe that I even have an identity beyond my depression, that somewhere left inside of me remains something that even can be treated.
One year. By the time this is said aloud in front of an audience, it will have been 1 year since I was raped on this campus. The one place I had begun to feel safest. Because I stayed silent, I never got the closure I needed. I did what seemed best for me at the time, but it has only left me with the burden of this story, one I haven't told a single person in full. What pains me the most is that you may never know what you did to me. You may never know the impact you've had on my mind, my body, and every fiber of my being while you continue to walk around like nothing happened. I will forever look in the mirror and see someone I don't recognize. I am no longer the quirky, sarcastic, driven, accomplished girl I was before. I'm a shadow of the person I used to be. My world shattered that morning when I woke up. Scattered memories of the alcohol-induced blackout came flooding back to me. I remembered being surrounded by your teammates on the dance floor of a club as they encouraged me onto you. I remembered barely registering who you even were before my world went black. I awoke in my own bed, feeling violated, used. I knew someone had been inside me, but had been too powerless to stop it. I hated that I didn't remember what exactly happened. It scared me beyond belief that I couldn't remember if a condom had been used. I got up to go to the bathroom and my heart sank. There was blood inside my leg. The one tangible piece of evidence that the night before had been more than just a bad dream. I wiped myself clean, hoping that once the blood was gone, I would be fine. In the days that followed, I tried to forget what had happened. When my friends asked me about my nights, I downplayed it as a hookup I didn't remember much of. I carried the reality with me to every class and every meal, waiting for the day when I could go even a few hours without replaying the whole event over and over again in my head. It took me a while, along with urging from a few friends, to seek help. Sure, I was sleeping to my 1:30 class and I hadn't been at practice because I couldn't get myself to leave my room, and I didn't care that half of the problems on my P sets were incomplete, but I couldn't admit defeat. It didn't help that I continued to get harassed by your teammates. They found entertainment in my torment, and I bought into it. I thought that if I admitted I couldn't handle it, it would mean that you had won. You and your teammate had driven me to my breaking point, but I couldn't give you the satisfaction of knowing it. So here I stand, finally addressing you. I have suffered through sleepless nights and counseling sessions and too many sympathetic looks from those who actually know part of the story. I decided I can't stay silent anymore, even if it doesn't do anything but remove a weight from my own shoulders. I wish I could say I don't think about it every day. I wish I could say it didn't destroy me to know that even though you and your teammates were just as guilty of the same thing, you weren't punished like the men's swim team was, simply because I chose not to file an official report. I wish I could say that I am back to my old, strong self, but I don't know if she exists anymore. I hope you never feel the devastation I felt that morning. I hope you never have to face your coach or teammates and explain why you haven't been at practice, brought to tears because you are too scared to tell everything, to be that vulnerable even with the people with whom you're closest. Got lucky. You got off easy while I carried the damage of what you did to me. You took away my energy, my self-worth, my confidence, my intimacy, my own voice. I have so many reasons to be grateful in life, so many people who love me and make me laugh, but even that hasn't been enough to drive out the anxiety and depression. A part of me may always be ashamed that I chose to do nothing, that by the time I realized I should have, it was too late. Maybe that makes me a coward, but there have been far too many stories on the news lately of girls being raped and being poked and prodded, being forced to relive their own nightmare over and over again. It took me time and energy to teach myself that I am worth it, that not all that is broken is any less beautiful or valuable. You may shatter my body, you may abuse my heart, but you can't destroy my soul. As long as I am living and breathing, as long as I am a survivor, that part of me will always be there.
It'll feel good to rant about this, so y'all buckle up. In some ways, I think I'm entitled to rant. I think I've suffered enough here at Princeton to be justified in griping about how little my 4 years have meant to me. How I look at them and see a hole in my life. How I regret every single day that I wish I had
Done this.
tried this,
Taken this risk.
pushed myself. I've never done anything, never gone out, not once, never. I've never been to an eating club at night or for a meal. I mean, hell, I probably recognize like 4 of them. Others are just an odd assortment of buildings. Never,
Been to a pregame.
never,
Drink alcohol at Princeton.
never,
Been to house parties.
never,
Been to formal.
never,
Been to the art scene.
never,
Been to an OAC trip.
never,
Been to a skate night.
never,
Been to a deep group study break.
never,
Been to a USG movie.
never,
Been to a Holy.
never,
Been to a B.
never,
Been to a dance show.
never,
Went to Lee as a freshman.
or as a sophomore.
Never.
Never,
Never.
never,
Never.
never,
Not ever.
no,
Ever?
no, never,
Never.
never went to CPS. Then yeah, I'm a senior. Didn't just end with my social life. I mean, I skipped out on classes and clubs that I found interesting. Creative writing, a seminar on Russian nationalist music. All the a cappella groups, never even auditioned. Cultural groups, IM, Cycling Club, PICO, IIPs, the list goes on and on. That's how much Princeton has to offer. But the thing is, most people dabble in enough and get a solid handle on what it is they want. Me, I didn't dabble. I came to Princeton with my goals set, and sure enough, I reached them. 2 things probably come to your mind. The first, I'm lying.
How could someone have gone through freshman year without getting late meal even once? You never went to a group study break?
Crazy? Right. It is crazy. And it's true. The second,
Well, you've still got time. Go and do these things.
I mean, let's be real here. People's social groups got set up a long time ago. Thrust me into the picture, and it will definitely be a photo bomb, not a collage. I know some of you are probably thinking that
This
is no excuse, and I wish I shared your optimism. I've just accepted where things stand.
What went wrong?
I get this question so many times from interviewers, and I always laugh and say, "Huh, what an excellent question. I know exactly what went wrong. I came to Princeton as one of the first students in years from my high school to be accepted here. I came to Princeton with the feeling that I did not belong here. I mean, I hated preview. Every second I trembled with fear. I knew people would say,
You're a lunatic.
if I turned down Princeton for some lower tier school that made me feel comfortable, like I belonged, I had no choice but to come here. And every day I tell myself that no matter what happens, I will still never be smart enough, athletic enough, artistic enough, funny enough, attractive enough, whatever enough, that there will always be those here who will beat me at these things and return me to my rightful place outside of the Princeton community, where I can't bother them with my inadequacy. So I saved them the trouble and stayed out of the community as much as I could. And here I am, 4 years later, spontaneously crying with regret and self-loathing at odd hours of the day, gazing wistfully at the sky, a wall, an old painting, my reflection.
How could I have done this to myself?
It's just been me. No one else. Princeton students are remarkable in every way. No one here would automatically classify me as unwanted or unnecessary before even meeting me. Why did I tell myself that that's what was going through their mind? Why not something good? I was my own problem. I mean, Princeton is probably wondering how I could turn such a wonderful place into a hellhole. Well, Princeton, I'm still wondering too.
Tense that clean jaw up. Boil yourself from the inside because you won't direct that anger anywhere else.
Somewhere inside of me, I know.
Because nobody ever talks about how much they're struggling.
Everyone just laughs it off.
We all feel like we're dying anyways.
Yeah, I'm gonna fail too.
Lol, forever alone.
I lost contact with my friends over time.
They simply stopped reaching out when they saw how unresponsive I was.
And of course, I didn't think I could talk to them about it.
I didn't think I could because talking makes it real.
And I didn't want them to worry about me.
Sometimes I'll be fine. Go through the motions, talk with my friends.
Other times, I just want to fall apart.
Like simply existing is too much for me.
I wish I could provide a hopeful ending to all this.
But know that I stand with you, though the truth is,
I'm
I'm still going through it.